Dion and the Belmonts were a leading American vocal group of the late 1950s. All members were from the Bronx, New York City. The group formed when Dion DiMucci, lead singer, joined the Belmonts. Carlo Mastrangelo, bass-baritone, Fred Milano, second tenor, and Angelo D'Aleo, first tenor, in late 1957. History: the name the Belmonts was derived from the fact that two of the four singers lived on Belmont Avenue in the Bronx, and the other two lived near Belmont Avenue. After unsuccessful singles on Mohawk Records in 1957 and then on Jubilee Records, Dion was paired with the Belmonts. The group signed with Lorry Records in early 1958. The breakthrough came when their very first Lorry release, I Wonder Why, reached number 22 on the Billboard Top 100 charts, and they appeared for the first time on the nationally televised American Bandstand show, hosted by Dick Clark. Dion said of the Belmonts, "I'd give 'em sounds. I'd give 'em parts and stuff. That's what I Wonder Why was about. We kind of invented this percussive rhythmic sound. If you listen to that song, everybody was doing something different. It was totally amazing. When I listen to it today, oftentimes I think, man, those kids are talented." Dion and the Belmonts were the sound of the city. Their roots were groups like the Flamingos, the Five Satins, the Dells, acts who developed their sound in urban settings on street corners, mimicking instruments with their voices, even complex jazz arrangements. They followed the hit with the ballads No One Knows, and Donia unregistered trademark Tea Pity Me, which they also performed on Bandstand. This early success brought them their first major tour in late 1958, with the Coasters, Buddy Holly and Bobby Darin, followed by the historic and tragic Winter Dance Party tour featuring Holly, Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper. On February 2, 1959, after playing the Surf Ballroom, Holly arranged to charter a plane. Dion decided he couldn't afford the $36 cost to fly to the next venue. $36 seemed like an awful lot of money to me, he said, and told Holly, no. Shortly after midnight, on February 3, 1959, the plane crashed near Clear Lake, Iowa, with Holly, Valens, the Big Bopper, and the pilot, Roger Peterson, all being killed. Bobby V, then an unknown artist, performed in Holly unregistered trademark S-Place at the very next concert. Later, Jimmy Clanton, Frankie Avalon, and Fabian were hired to finish the tour in place of the three deceased headliners. In March 1959, Dion and the Belmonts' unregistered trademark next single, A Teenager in Love, broke the top 10, reaching number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 28 on the UK singles charts. Written by Doc Pomus and Mort Schumann, it's considered one of the greatest songs in rock and roll history. It was followed by their first album, presenting Dion and the Belmonts. Their biggest hit, Where or When, was released in November 1959, and reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 with the group making another national appearance on American Bandstand. The flip side, That's My Desire, although never charting nationally, is as well known in many areas, especially New York City. Other singles released for the group that year continued to chart Billboard, but were less successful. In early 1960, Dion checked into a hospital for heroin addiction, a problem he had since his mid-teens. At the height of the group's success, his drug dependency worsened. When, Where or When, peaked, he was in a hospital detoxifying. In addition, there were financial and musical differences between Dion and members of the Belmonts. They wanted to get into their harmony thing, and I wanted to rock and roll, said Dion. The label wanted me doing standards. I got bored with it quickly. I said, I can't do this. I gotta play my guitar. So we split up and I did, Runaround Sue, The Wanderer, and Ruby Baby. In October 1960, DiMucci decided to quit for a solo career. Now simply known as Dion, his first major hit, Lonely Teenager, was backed by a female chorus. He eventually chose to work with the Del Satins, who backed him on all his early Lorry and Columbia Records hits, which, besides the three aforementioned hits Dion quoted, also included Donna the Prima Donna, and Drip Drop. Later reissues of these songs would often be erroneously attributed to Dion and the Belmonts. The Belmonts also continue to release records on their own label, Sabina Records, but with less success, although songs like Such a Long Way, Tell Me Why, I Need Someone, I Confess, and Come On Little Angel all got significant radio play in the New York City area. Dion and the Belmonts reunited in late 1966 for the album Together Again on ABC Records. Produced by Demont Music, 2 singles were released from the LP, My Girl a Month of May / Berenbaugh, and Movin' Man / For Bobby. Neither charted in the United States, but fared better in England. My Girl a Month of May broke the Radio London Fab 40 Top 10 at number 9 the week of December 25, 1966. One reviewer stated, "Some British radio DJs gave it a lot of airplay at the time." The follow-up, Movin' Man, reached number 17 on the Radio London charts on March 26, 1967. My Girl a Month of May, was later covered by English artists Alan Bown in 1967, and by The Bunch in April 1972. During their brief mid-60s reunion, Dion and the Belmonts appeared on the popular Clay Cole show performing Berenbaugh, and My Girl a Month of May, and occasionally performed at local New York City clubs such as the Mardi Gras on Staten Island before disbanding. The original group reunited once again June 2, 1972 for a show at Madison Square Garden, which was recorded and released as a live album for Warner Brothers. A year later, in 1973, DiMucci, Mastrangelo, Milano and D'Aleo performed once more, doing a sold-out concert at the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, New York. No recording of the 1973 reunion was ever released. In 1968, as a solo performer, Dion recorded Abraham, Martin and John written by Dick Holler. It is a tribute to social change icons, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, Jr., John F. Kennedy and Robert F. Kennedy. It was written as a response to the assassination of King and the younger Kennedy in April and June 1968. When producer Phil Gernhardt initially presented the song to DiMucci, the latter didn't care for it. With the persistence of Gernhardt, and Dion's wife Susan, he flew to New York that summer. He recorded the song in just one take. Lorry Records released the single in September of that year and it quickly raced up the charts, peaking at number 4 in December. DiMucci, now a star again, was invited to sing this comeback hit on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, as well as many other top shows. Including Billboard Hot 100 singles, Dion and the Belmonts charted 856 radio station surveys across the United States during the 1950s and 1960s. In 2000 the group was inducted in the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. Dion was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989. Rock Hall Omission, in 2012, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame did a mass induction of 6 deserving pioneering groups that were left out in error when their lead singers were inducted in the Hall of Fame's early years of inductions: The Miracles, The Crickets, The Midnighters, The Famous Flames, The Comets and The Blue Caps. Because of the timeline when these groups were successful, it was believed that the Belmonts would be included in this induction, but it was not forthcoming. Because of the fact that the Belmonts scored chart hits for an additional 3 years after Dion left the group, coupled with the fact that the entire group, including Dion, were inducted intact into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame in 2000, just 1 year after Dion's solo induction into the Rock Hall, made their omission even more puzzling. In January 2012, the year of that mass vocal group induction, Fred Milano of the Belmonts died. In a Billboard magazine article, dated January 3, 2012, it was stated, there was strife between DiMucci and Belmonts members, who were not pleased when DiMucci was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame without them in 1989. Discography Albums Dion and the Belmonts released 4 albums, presenting Dion and the Belmonts Lorry Records, Wish Upon a Star Lorry Records, Together Again ABC Records, Reunion, Live at Madison Square Garden released in 1973 by Warner Brothers Records. The 2 Lorry Records LPs are the most collectible, especially the first pressings of Presenting Dion and the Belmonts, issued as Lorry LP 1002. There were also later compilations, some of which included the separate hits of the Belmonts, and some that included the hits of Dion, and Dion and the Belmonts. All singles released by Dion and the Belmonts. See also, Dion DiMucci, the Belmonts. References, A.B. Perfect Sound Forever, Dion Speaks of the Blues. Furious.com. February 3, 1959. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Elvis and Dion at the Garden, 40 Years On. Classic Pop Icons. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Hudick, Joseph. Dion Biography. Rolling Stone. Retrieved August 18, 2015. ARSA Brother Nigel's Proxy Party. Las-Solanas.com. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Dion, inducted in 1989 the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. Rockhall.com. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Dion and the Belmonts, inductees, the Vocal Group Hall of Fame Foundation. Vocalgroup.org. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Dion, inducted in 1989 the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. Rockhall.com. Retrieved August 18, 2015. Fred Milano of Dion and the Belmonts dies. Billboard. Retrieved August 18, 2015. https, vimeo.com/127273973. External links, Dion and the Belmonts. Dion and the Belmonts 2, video, induct the Belmonts into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Dion.